the Raising the Bar podcast, brought to you by the Association of Gray's Inn Students.
Welcome to Raising the Bar, the podcast brought to you by the Association of Gray's Inn Students. My name is Hafsa, and in this second of two special episodes, I'll be chatting to members of the AGIS committee, finding out a bit more about them and their journey through the inn. My next guest is Molly. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Hafsa.
Molly is the treasurer of the AGIS committee.
That I am.
You get to mess around with all the money.
Yes, absolutely. I get to decide who gets to spend their money and when.
Are you having fun with that?
Not as much fun as I thought, you know?
You're not sitting in a room surrounded by piles of gold?
No, there's not quite a lot of cash involved. It's a lot of me just telling the inn that we spent a lot of money.
I'm sure they love to hear that.
Oh, absolutely.
So, interesting story, actually. Molly and I know each other from before Gray's Inn, right?
Yes, from university, during which we were online and I got to see Hafsa's name pop up and her answering all the questions and me just taking frantic notes of what she was saying because I had no idea what was going on.
You're giving me a bit too much credit. Actually, I've just told a story to Camilla about that university open day that we went to and how I went to the wrong inn.
Brilliant.
The friend I was texting was Molly.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to reference that today, actually.
Oh, no. Okay, well, I exposed myself already, so luckily beat you to the punch. So why did you choose treasurer, Molly?
Treasurer. Okay. So I've been involved in committees throughout my education, from being head of the school council in primary school, really representing all the way up to here. So I knew I wanted to get involved. And I've just spent the past year working in a bank. So I figured might as well put some of the skills I've learnt there to some use.
Transferable.
Absolutely.
Of course. Molly, first question, why did you choose Gray's Inn?
Well, I don't know about you, but I've gotten this question about at least 10 times in the past couple of months, usually from people who are deciding which inn they're going to join. Unfortunately, there's no quiz or, test that's going to tell you which one to go for. So you've really got to decide what you need from your inn. And for me, that was financing and somewhere that was willing to welcome me in. Financially, I knew I wanted a residential scholarship. So that cut it down by 2 already. Mm-hmm. And then looking into the financial side, Gray's giving out less scholarships overall meant that the amount could actually be a bit higher for each person. So that was great for me. And then with it being a smaller inn as well, I found it a bit more of a welcoming area to go into. It felt as though everyone from student to bencher was willing to have a conversation with you about the bar, about what they do, and about where you could fit into it.
Excellent, thorough response, Molly.
Absolutely. I have had this prepared, all those tours.
Has this been in the works since the scholarship interviews?
Yes, I've done at least 2 Q&A sessions, so
I see.
Answers prepared.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I think I had a similar process to you, actually, which was trying to think about which inn could financially support me the most. Not to be cynical, but I just, the bar course is so expensive.
So expensive.
We're both northerners, so having to live in London, I think, would have killed both of us on the inside if we had to pay rent. So
absolutely.
It's nice to be residents. Well, on that note then, what has been your best experience of Gray's Inn?
So I had the chance to kind of go to every inn, thankfully, for different types of things. One of them was a dinner, which may have been a fateful dinner with Hafsa involved, going to the wrong inn. But the dinners I've had at Gray's have been the absolute best. One of the mixed messes I went to earlier this year, I was sat between 2 barristers, a criminal barrister and I think a Navy law barrister, which I hadn't considered before. And then across from me was someone currently doing the bar course and then another person who had pupillage. And getting to interact with all these people over some decent food and good wine was a great way to, get to know the bar, get to know Gray's as well, and enjoy sitting there in a gown and eating in this absolutely, utterly absurd place, but completely lovable environment.
One of the things I wanted to ask you then is, at least personally, I find it very, in the initial stages, quite nerve-wracking to to attend these events, to talk to people, especially people who are far more ahead in their careers than I am. So what advice would you say to people who feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I feel it too. I think it's so, so difficult. I think you need to remind yourself of the place you've gotten to so far. And if that's that you've gotten off of the train to London and you're in Grays for the first time, then it's amazing that you even found out about the place and that you're here. But if that's that you got a scholarship or that you're on the bar course or that you're further than that or that you're before that, you've got to remind yourself of all the things you've done. All the small things, all the big things. Because if you sit there and listen to everyone else saying, oh yes, I went to Harvard, or oh yes, I've been a barrister for 15 years, and don't think about your own good merits, then you'll never have a discussion that's fruitful for you.
Yeah, I think I would just not open my mouth. Molly, if you had to give one call to action for Gray's Inn students, what would it be?
I know it's not my role currently. It used to be my role as mooting secretary at university, but get involved in any of the kind of advocacy things. It's one of the most pivotal parts of being a barrister. It's what you want to go into if you're going to become a barrister. And I think it can be the most intimidating thing, but I don't think it has to be. There's the Gray's Inn Debating Society now. They're very fun. There's also the wide range of moots that I'm deciding what we can afford for. And then there's also just mooting in general here and around the country. I really recommend getting involved with it. As intimidating as it is, it gets easier every time. Absolutely.
Fantastic advice, which I hope I will take at some point.
You better.
Okay, my final question for you today, Molly, is if Gray's Inn was a Hogwarts house, which one would it be?
You know what? This is a kind of big question. We've been having this debate in my household recently. Now, there's this really old adage, like from ages ago, in which Gray's is the bore. So I do unfortunately think that we are, despite having the Griffin logo, I do think we are Hufflepuff. Oh. Not that there's anything wrong with Hufflepuff.
Wow, that is a controversial take, Molly.
Well, I don't know. Maybe we can claim somewhere that the Griffin entitles us to Gryffindor, but I just don't think we can.
Okay. Well, Molly, thank you for joining us on the podcast. My next two guests are Thomas and Ewan. Hi, Thomas, and hi, Ewan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Excited to be here on my first ever podcast experience.
First ever podcast experience. Yes. It's triggering something?
Yes, it's triggering, I think. I think I said before, it's triggering the male instinct to do a podcast. So,
and here we are.
Yeah, Tom and I have got early plans for a big podcast series.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to do a rival one. Hafsa.
Oh, I see. AGIS 2.0.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so Thomas, you're the debating and mooting officer for the AGIS committee. What made you go for that role?
Well, I'd done a similar thing at uni before, and I just absolutely loved it. I think mooting is something that everyone needs to get involved with. It's the whole point of being at the bar, really, to get the chance to do some advocacy. And I think that it's a great opportunity to both enter some really competitive big moots like Jessup and Viz. That can be a really good way of becoming more advanced in your advocacy, as well as kind of widening participation to mooting to people who've never tried it before. So it's really exciting to see people kind of grow from being sort of nervous at first and then moving to become really confident advocates. So I think that was the main reason I did it, really.
And Ewan, you are the social secretary for the AGIS committee. What drew you to that role?
Well, when I was doing my bar course last year with ICA, I was on the remote part 1, and it was only by coming to the Inn events that I managed to get into that community, and I really benefited from it. So I thought I'd take up the opportunity to give that to the next generation of students, let them come through and enjoy the same events.
Have you had fun planning the event so far?
We've got some exciting things in the works, as people might have heard from the adverts. We've got the winter party that's coming up in December. And this is the big party that we do once a year with all of the students. So we won't do another one in summer this year because we've got the summer extravaganza, which is being run by the Inn as a whole. So that's going to be Ferris wheels, fairground rides, all of this kind of excitement. But the winter party is the student one, so it will only be students there. And we'll be doing a 3-course dinner, and there will be a silent disco afterwards. So anyone who hasn't bought their tickets, probably by the time this podcast comes out, there's just enough time to get your ticket in.
To grab a ticket for you and your 3 guests.
No one advertises events as well as you. And I think if I ever have a party, I know who I'm going to ask to publicize it.
Tom and I have a commission arrangement for
I
this
see.
now.
Okay. And who's DJing the silent disco? Do we know?
So I've been required by my colleagues to have at least one of the channels entirely on Taylor Swift. And this is to appease the crowds. And then the rest of the stuff will be a mix. So we'll have 3 different channels.
I quite like the sound of a Taylor Swift only channel. I feel like that will be the most popular amongst a certain generation of students, at least. So moving on to the questions. Thomas, what has been your path to the bar?
Well, it's been a pretty sort of up and down, complicated one. I started off really wanting to be a solicitor. So I think people who are listening to this who are maybe in their second year of university now might have found that a lot of people apply to be a solicitor in second year, and you kind of get caught up in that wave. So I did that. My heart was never massively in it, but I ended up getting a vacation scheme and doing that, which then got cancelled because of COVID.
I was waiting for those words.
Yeah, which was a kind of blessing in disguise, really, as sad as I was at the time, because it gave me a chance to think about what I really wanted to do. And in my third year, I started taking part in a bunch of moots, which I guess kind of leads into what I'm doing now.
Full circle.
So I did the Jessup moot, which I can't recommend highly enough. It's a big international law moot, which if you get the chance to do at university, you definitely should. And I think, Gray's Inn run a team as well, which we're organising now. And I also did a Dismith moot, which is run by Blackstone Chambers, which were both fantastic. And I just absolutely loved that. They were just like, the advocacy part really appeals to me of the bar. So I did that, and then I left uni kind of unsure how to get from my degree to actually becoming an advocate and actually going to pupillage. I didn't really know much about it at all. So I spent a bit of time working out what's going on with that, and I spent a year working for a judge in the Court of Appeal. There were a few options after you finish university for kind of preparing for the bar. One of them being a judicial assistant in either the High Court, the Court of Appeal, or the Supreme Court. And the other, perhaps working for the Law Commission, would be another big one that a lot of people do. And then I did a master's. And then, to cut a long story short, I ended up applying for pupillage on my master's. And now I'm doing the bar course.
Fantastic. That seems like quite a thorough experience to get to the bar, because I went undergrad and bar course. So
Yeah.
It seems like you've taken the more scenic route.
Yeah, definitely the scenic route. I saw all the views along the way, but I think it's worth taking your time. Not to the extent I can give any advice. I would say it's worth not launching into pupillage straight away, and actually taking your time to work out what you want and where you want to be. So I don't regret spending that time at all.
But I think that's one of the forgiving things about a career at the bar. People do come to it at such different life stages, and it isn't one of those things where you run into it straight after uni for some people, and it's nice to see that you can get there at whatever point.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Ewan, my question for you is, what has been your best experience of Gray's Inn?
So I've got 2 things that come to mind when you say that, and they're both on the education end of the spectrum. So Tom touched on doing Jessup, but for me, doing the Viz Moot was probably the equivalent experience, where you work in a small team for about 6 months. And we traveled Europe doing pre-moots, and then ended up in Vienna for the final mooting competition. And it's one of those incredible mooting experiences that you can't replicate. And as we were saying to the Jessup team who have just started, it's the only time you get to totally perfect your advocacy. You have so much time to do it, and you have so much training that goes into it, that it's the one time you're going to get that opportunity, especially at a student level, to really achieve top level advocacy.
Is it interesting working in those teams? Like, how does that dynamic work?
you start off, and we've had this, I met Tom while he was introducing the new team this year to Jessup. Everyone starts off a little bit, what have we got ourselves into? We're not too sure what's coming down the pipeline. And then the example we were given when we were doing the Viz was that only when you get to the point where you're going out to get a coffee, you're trying to switch off from doing the moot, you're just on a random Saturday, and you find yourself thinking about the arguments that you're going to make in the moot, just completely separate from any of your work. They say that's the moment where you're thinking about it the right amount. And it means when you finally sit down to do that moot, everything's in your head. It's already ready. And it's quite a unique experience, especially compared to some of the other moots where they're a bit more rushed as a timeline. And just to pivot off your question, the second thing was Cumberland Lodge, which you will hear a lot about from the older members of the inn, who will all say they remember their time at Cumberland Lodge. And the only thing I can say about it is everything they say is absolutely true. And when you're listening to everyone reminiscing about Cumberland Lodge, you think that can't possibly be true. How could it be that good a weekend? And then you go away and you realize it is as good as it sounds. And it's just a really incredible educational opportunity.
So forgive my ignorance, but I've actually not heard of Cumberland Lodge before. Would you mind maybe briefly explaining what Cumberland Lodge involves?
So Cumberland Lodge is a lodge in Windsor Park, but it's part of a charity, so it's used for educational events. And the inns, once a year, each inn goes out to Cumberland Lodge, and it's essentially an advocacy weekend where you get feedback from practitioners on your advocacy, and then you do dinners, lunches, and spend time playing croquet, amongst other activities. Okay. I believe I know there is a karaoke machine in the basement. But enough said on that.
That is something actually that really surprised me about Gray's Inn. I didn't realize there was an unspoken requirement for everyone to be good at singing. But at the dinners and at miscellany, people just burst into fantastic song.
Gray's is very keen on karaoke. It's one of our strengths.
I have noticed that. So students who are listening and who like karaoke, this is the inn to apply to.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not one of my strengths. So if you don't like karaoke, you can avoid it like me.
We'll put Tom down to a work in progress.
Okay, so Ewan and Thomas, what is the best piece of advice you've been given? Let's start with Thomas.
Well, my best advice was an advice when I was on mini pupillage at Blackstone Chambers. One of the barristers there said to me, you should carry with you a professional pride. And I think this applies to people who are on the bar course now and on pupillage at the moment, is that if you treat everything as an obligation, then everything becomes a chore and you can be very good, but get burnt out very easily. So trying to retain as best you can that sense of enjoyment and remember the reason you came to the bar and really put in that extra kind of push, that extra effort makes everything more enjoyable. And I think remembering that I've decided to be here and I've got that kind of pride with me, that advice has really stuck with me.
That's interesting. My older sister's a doctor and she did 5 years of medicine. She went into it with pure passion, but at a certain point you get to that edge where you're about to be burnt out, and she has to remind herself, that this is something I want to do, this is something I feel a privilege to do, and then to continue practicing in that way.
Yeah, and I think you're constantly surrounded by people who are doing cool things, right? If you're at the bar, so you can forget how unique and how special and how interesting it is to be a barrister just by being surrounded by so many people who are doing the same thing. So I think keeping that is something I'm really trying to do.
Keeping that pride alive. Yeah. No, that's a very good advice. I will internalize that.
The barrister who told it to me was filling out a contents page for a really complicated set of legal arguments. And she said, most people would think this is really boring, but the fact that I'm really putting the effort into it is kind of what I try and carry through with me. So yeah, anyway, I thought it was good advice.
I think that's excellent advice as well.
I'm now worrying about my answer. As Tom's saying this, I'm trying to write down everything he's said so that I can come back to it in future when I need this advice.
It's all recorded, Ewan, don't worry.
Excellent. I'm not sure where I read it, but I think it might have been someone posting about their letter in Council magazine. But when receiving advice from others, bear in mind that people who have done what you've been doing much further down the line are often reminiscing about their own time applying for something or starting out their career. And often it's not that practical, useful advice. And the bar is a place where people are going to give you advice all the time about your career. And a huge amount of it will be useful. And a huge amount of it will be people reminiscing about the start of their own career. So my advice is take everything with a little pinch of salt, because you are your own candidate, and other people reminiscing about their own careers and the path that they've taken could sometimes be more or less helpful.
Especially when you think about how different the world we're in to maybe even a few generations ago when they were applying for pupillage. It is just a completely different experience, I think, in so many ways. I'm sure none of the people applying for pupillage just a few generations ago had to deal with, and my studies were interrupted by COVID.
Yeah. But I do think, especially for new students coming in, the bar is a unique place, and you have many wonderful conversations with people at various different qualifying sessions. But many of your conversations will always end in career advice. And if you took the exact words of everyone who is ready to offer you career advice, you'd be left with a very inconsistent principle. So try and keep what you've got yourself and what you bring, because one day someone's going to be asking you on a podcast to give career advice to others, and you'll be trying to create your own principle when ultimately it's all about you.
It's also quite scary as well, because inevitably the advice you listen to is the one that you're sort of following least. So if you think that you should be writing applications a certain way and someone tells you a completely different way, it can really throw you off, I think.
This means Tom wants to enjoy filling out contents pages.
Yes, absolutely. Always.
Practicing the skill behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So Funmi mentioned earlier about Tutor the Nation, and I know, Ewan, that you have some involvement with them as well.
I'm really excited that we're doing a partnership with Tutor the Nation this year. So Tutor the Nation is slightly different to other charities. And the reason I'm particularly interested in it is, instead of, say, Bridging the Bar or other schemes like that, where you have to apply to be mentored and you have to apply for the support, Tutor the Nation is a charity where teachers will select underperforming students who don't have the confidence to come forward in class, or they don't have the confidence to put their hand up and say, I'm really struggling, I need help with my work. So the teachers will earmark the students who are struggling, and they will be allocated to Tutor the Nation. What we're looking for this year is Gray's Inn students who are willing to sign up to volunteer for 1 hour a week of tutoring. And most of the work you do when you tutor, having previously tutored English literature for Tutor the Nation, is confidence building. So there are students who don't like asking questions in class, are worried that they might be seen as getting everything wrong. And it's an opportunity for them to talk to you one-on-one and say, look, I'm struggling with this, and you can talk them through it. And you really do see an improvement, because these students haven't got the confidence in class, which is why they've been put on to Tutor the Nation. And you have the opportunity to give them that confidence back, which is why their tagline is making education fairer, because it's fair. The people who don't have the confidence to put themselves forward are often the ones who need the most support. And I know talking about people who don't have the confidence to put themselves forward is probably the opposite of most of us at the bar, but perhaps we can take a bit of our confidence and use that to help others. So if you do sign up, or we're not going to be restrictive of it, we're doing drinks in autumn. So once people have started signing up, we'll do a welcome/celebratory drinks in the inn for those who have signed up to the Tutor the Nation programme. And then we can all chat about the volunteering that we're doing.
That sounds great. I mean, I briefly worked as a teacher, and I completely agree with you. You have students who will reach out and try to get support and advice, and they are usually the ones who are actually performing quite well. And the ones who are struggling feel so horrified at the fact that they feel like they might never catch up. It's good that, you know, they have that kind of support through Tutor the Nation.
And both schemes have merit. Schemes that are addressed to people who are willing to put themselves forward are great. I'm sure many aspiring barristers have come through those kinds of schemes. But schemes like Tutor the Nation deal with the other end of the spectrum for those who really need assistance in the classroom.
That's brilliant. Thank you for telling us about Tutor the Nation. So, Ewan and Thomas, if you had to give one call of action to Gray's Inn students, what would it be?
Well, I feel like it's my duty as mooting and debating officer.
Tom has a list in front of him now. He's gonna go through it for us.
It's not just Ewan that can advertise events. I think you need to sign up for as many moots as possible, both internal and external, as much as you've got time for to really get that practice in. If you haven't seen the external moots sign up form, just email agis@graysin.org.uk asking to be sent the form, and that's something that can be done. We have a lot of external moots this year happening, things that are open to students who've done lots of mooting before, but also more beginner level events as well, which can be really interesting. One I'm particularly looking forward to is the 4-pump court Pride moot, which I think usually deals with some very interesting issues and is a little bit, I went last year when I was a judicial assistant, and it was a great atmosphere and everyone, one of the friendliest and most fun moots I've done. I would also suggest that you join our fantastic debating society, which is run by Alexandra and Isabella, who are 2 Gray's Inn students at the moment. They are running a very, very successful society, which meets on Monday evenings. To get part of that, you should email debating@graysin.org.uk and you'll be sent the times and added to the mailing list. So I really, really recommend. Not only is it really interesting, but there's no prep required because you're sent the problem 15 minutes before the club starts. And also, it's great for those questions that you sometimes, like I got asked in pupillage interviews, which are, give me 3 arguments for this random thing that I've not prepared for. And I think debating society, even if you don't touch on that exact problem, can help you build those skills. And also, I think Ewan would get annoyed at me if I didn't promote our run club.
There is a metaphorical gun to Tom's head at this point.
Both me and Ewan have started a run club, though I think...
actually, Tom's talking it down. We've got 2 members now.
2 members of the Run Club.
Yes, we do. What do you mean, me and you?
It's me and Tom.
There will be more. It's a growing club, and we would love it if you could join. That's also on Mondays, just before the debating society. So maybe you want a bit of a 5K to prepare you for the debate. To join that, just email agis@graysin.org.uk and we'll make sure the message gets out to you about the runs. It's a really, really nice run across the river coming up by St. Paul's. So yes, we'd very much recommend joining.
You can see the lights of the city in the distance. We've got a very good route worked out, but make sure to email in before, because if we cancel it because of weather, then we'll be able to let you know.
Or they could just go for an independent run in the name of the Run Club.
Yes.
We would love for that to start happening.
But if it starts snowing, I will not be joining.
Okay, Ewan, what would be your call to action for Gray's Inn students?
I've got 2 events I want to plug, so a slightly shorter list than Tom's. The Winter Party. If you haven't booked already, this is probably your last chance to book it when this podcast goes out. And it's the one big party the students do every year, so I would hate for you to miss out. The GIBC AGIS quiz is happening in February. So GIBC is the Barristers Committee at the Inn. I'm taking charge of 3 of the rounds. The GIBC are taking charge of 3 of the rounds. I did a Christmas quiz with my family this year, and I wrote a couple of the rounds, to which the feedback from my family was, this isn't fun if people can't get any of the questions. So I'm hoping to take a little bit of the energy from that, and I'm going to put it into this year's GIBC AGIS quiz. And you might recognize some of the names reading out the quiz questions, but that's going to come around in February. But for now, book your tickets to the AGIS Winter Party. Don't miss out, and come and say hello to any of us around the inn if you recognize us, because we're all friendly faces. But you can't see those on the podcast, of course.
You'll see them on the social media. So one last question for you both. If Gray's Inn was a Hogwarts house, which one would it be?
Should we say it at the same time?
I can count you in if you'd
I don't know
like.
if we're going to say the same, but okay.
Do you want me to count you in?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Hufflepuff.
Gryffindor.
Oh, okay. This has been interesting.
Well, mine feels like an easy win because our logo is a griffin. That's a nice plug for me to say they've launched merch. According to Stephen, our under-treasurer, 2024 is the year of the merch. And that's why we've now got Griffin logo merch coming out.
I feel really passionate about this. I think Hufflepuff is a severely underrated house full of very friendly people who are always willing to help out. And I think that I just think that embodies Grey's Inn. Gryffindor is arrogant, and it's just not what Grey's Inn is about.
I wouldn't say there's any aspect of Grey's Inn that's understated or underappreciated. So your criteria fails.
Well, thank you both, Tom and Ewan, for speaking with me today.
No problem. I'm looking forward to continuing the Hogwarts House debate off podcast, but I don't want to run you on too long.
We're going to take this offline.
Unfortunately, Tanya couldn't join us for the recording process. Here's what Tanya wanted to tell you about herself.
Why did I choose Grey's Inn? I had been to visit one other inn before the world shut down during the pandemic, and it was lovely, but it just didn't feel like home to me. And something drew me to Grey's. I don't know if it's because Grey's Inn is the smallest and most collegiate, or if it's because every time I attended a lecture online or saw speakers, the ones I admired the most were always from Grey's. For example, Helena Kennedy. Or because I'm a massive admirer of Lady Hill. I mean, either way, I explored all the other inns online and I looked around, but instinctively I just kept coming back to Grey's. I knew it was right for me. And I joined before applying for my scholarships because I was pretty sure of that. And the first time I came here in person, I felt so out of place. It was so big and so amazing, but they made me feel at home straight away. And I absolutely love Grey's. Best decision I ever made. What do I think is the biggest challenge currently facing bar students? Oh my goodness. I think if I had to sum it up, it would be finance and inclusion. As someone who's lived on food banks and universal credit or welfare benefits, as someone who doesn't have wealthy parents to support me, I have multiple disabilities, including physical, mental health problems, neurological conditions. I'm double neurodivergent. It has been exceptionally difficult, even with the amazing help and support that I've had from Grey's Inn and from the City Law School. And then you kind of add to that the fact that there are not presently part-time pupilages or facilities for those who cannot physically be in court every day. And the path just becomes increasingly difficult. The one-size-fits-all approach to accessing the bar doesn't actually fit all. And I think that's a huge challenge and something we need to work on going forward.
And that's all we have time for in the second of our two-part special podcast. Thanks again to all my guests for joining me, and to all of you for listening. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Raising the Bar podcast. Please follow, rate and review on your podcast app. And for more information, check us out on Twitter at AGIS Students.